Hey, how's it going? Oh, right, before we start, just a quick word for today's sponsor, Tesco Diet Cola. Really good for cleaning toilets, just don't drink it. So, anyway, right. Resistance bands, chest expander. Oh, just dropped it on the floor. Which do I prefer? Which is better than the other? Well, let's see. Let's go through a few things. Let's look at price, practicality, and do they actually work? So let's start on price. So these chest expanders, I've seen them as cheap as 10 quid, and they go up as much as sort of 25 to 30 quid. Resistance bands, they're around about 25 to 35 pound for a set, for a good set, the loop resistance bands, not the one you put on the door. I'm not fussed on them, or the little tiny ones, you know, these looped, these ones I'm talking about, you know, them ones. So when it comes to price, it's pretty evenly matched. The chest expander, the £10 ones don't tend to be that good. So you want to spend about 20-25 quid on one. So the price is pretty much the same. So what about building muscle? Well, they pretty much work on the same principle. The more you stretch the springs on the chest expander, the harder it becomes and the more tension it puts on the muscle. Same thing with the resistance bands, identical. The more tension you put on here, the more resistance you get. And the harder it gets, the more you lengthen the resistance band, the same as when you lengthen one of these springs. Okay, same horse, different jockey. Just a different way of doing it, okay? So when it comes to building muscle, now first of all, do they build muscle? Absolutely yes. I mean, resistance bands have been proven time and time again in studies. They put resistance bands up against, you can see some of my other videos, which I'll link here and in the description box below. They've done studies on resistance bands where they show they build just as much muscle as using dumbbells and weights. There's pretty much no difference. Not a lot of studies on the chest expander, probably because it's an old bit of kit and not many people use it anymore. But does it build muscle? Absolutely it builds muscle. It builds muscle just as good as resistance bands. No doubt about it. It works under the same principles, except it's using a spring rather than a rubber band. Exactly the same principles. So they both build muscle. Now, you may ask yourself, how does it build muscle? Well, the body doesn't really know, doesn't really give a toss what resistance it's receiving, whether it's from doing calisthenics, pull-ups and push-ups and things like that, whether it's using resistance bands, whether it's using a chest expander. All the body knows that the muscles are being put under tension and need to get stronger and need to get bigger to compensate for for what's being put on them. So when it comes to building muscle, they both build muscle, and don't think they won't work. A lot of people, will swear, you got to use weights, man, you got to use weights. Not always the case, and there's plenty of studies out there that will, back that up. So building muscle, identical.
But if you're going to do comparison of traditional heavy resistance training with weights versus, let's say, bands, your muscles, in essence, don't care what kind of tension is put on them. Whether you're pulling on a band or pushing a car or lifting a weight, your muscle senses it as tension, and tension, in general, produces growth. And in fact, even if you look at some endurance athletes like rowers, swimmers, even cyclists, if you look at their legs, the kind of tension they apply is not weight training, is not similar to weight training, but it's enough tension that they get some hypertrophy or some growth. And in fact, you'll enjoy this. There's some newer research showing that doing very heavy weights, low volume versus high volume, lower weights, produce similar hypertrophy.
Okay, and lastly, we come to sort of practicality, convenience, versatility, and this is where I think the resistance bands win out. The problem with a chest expander is, despite its name, it doesn't really work the chest with the exercises it gives in the instructions. It's pretty much, it'll work most muscle groups, but it's not great for working the chest unless you stick it to a door and then you can push it off a door and do that, or do some flies with it. Also not great at doing legs. I mean, I suppose you could kind of do it, but not great at doing legs. It's more of an upper body exercise. And if you look at most of the old school pictures of people using these, they've all got very flat chests. So that's the problem with it. And like I said, though, you can't put it on a door handle or something. You have to be careful it doesn't slip off. But not ideally practical. When it comes to resistance bands, you can do pretty much any exercise you can do with a dumbbell, you can do with a resistance band. I still haven't come across one different. I'm not comparing it to a squat or a Smith machine or a squat rack or anything like that. But compared to dumbbells, anything you can do with a dumbbell, you can do with a resistance band. Convenience. Now, obviously, when you use a chest expander, if you want to reduce the resistance, you have to take these springs off. So you have to go what you do, you get the clip and you push that in. Give me a sec. Push that in there. Okay. And take that off. And if you want to increase the resistance and you want to add one on, you've got to put that back on. And there you go. Okay, so it's not too bad, but you've got to take these springs on and off, and it takes a few minutes every time if you want to increase the resistance for a stronger body part. Say, for instance, if you say doing bicep curls for chest or for back, you might need something stronger, so you want to add a spring. You've got to take them on and off all the time. Now, as long as you've got a collection of resistance bands, it's quite easy. So I just pick up this one and I go, right. Oh, that's a bit easier, that one is. Right, that's a bit easy. Hang on. If it wasn't all tangled up, I should have had them better prepared than this. Let's try again. Okay. So I'm doing this. That's a bit easy, that is. Right. Just get this one. There you go. That's better. So you just move at the band. That's much easier. You haven't got to mess about with springs, taking them on and off all the time, and some of them can be quite fiddly. So when it comes to practicality, convenience and versatility, I think overall, for the price, the resistance bands are your best bet for your money. Some people disagree, and I've actually had quite a heated discussion in my comment section with one gentleman who insisted that these chest expanders were way better at building muscle than resistance bands. That's just not, it just isn't true. It's not true. They build muscle identically. If I did this with a resistance band, with the right band at the right resistance, okay, that's going to build exactly the same amount of muscle as that is. No difference at all. But it's just resistance bands are far more versatile. I want to come to safety, because some people say they've had resistance bands, snapping them and slap them in the face or in the arse. It can happen. It can happen. It's never happened to me, thankfully. But here's the thing. I always check my resistance bands for any splits or tears. So you need to go through it. Just look through them. Make sure there's no hairline cracks or anything like that you can see in there. And if it's not, it should be fine. Also as well, just get this one, which I lobbed over there earlier. Right. Also as well, if I'm using this small resistance band, and I'm going, that's too easy. So what tends to happen, people then shorten it or lengthen it too far and then try and do this to increase the resistance, which will work, but the problem is you're putting too much tension on that band and you're overstretching it, which could cause it to get these hairline sort of cracks in them and eventually snap. So if you feel that the band is getting a bit, you can wrap them up to increase the resistance, but if you do it too much and overstretch the band, it's going to give on you and snap. So if you feel it is, yeah, you can't get the resistance on it, just go to the next one up. Okay, don't try and overstretch the band to get the resistance. So, I mean, these are pretty safe. I mean, I have seen people doing a bicep curl where they hook it over their foot, okay, and they put their foot over there and they're doing the bicep curl and then it slips off the foot and slaps them in the face. So that can happen with these as well. And the old sort of story where they're doing it across the chest and they got their tops off because they want to look buff, and they get their hair stuck in the springs when the spring contracts back down. That can be quite painful. So when it comes to safety aspects of both, I think it's just common sense. So which one would I choose? Look, if you put a gun to my head, I'd choose whatever one you'd ask me to. But no, realistically, if I could only buy one thing, it would be the resistance bands. They're just more versatile. But here's the thing, I've got the two of them. So best of both worlds, really. You know, as good as bands are, these build muscle just as well, even though they're not quite as versatile as the bands. They're still a good bit of kit. And sometimes it's just good to mix it up, isn't it? Sometimes you can go, oh, I've got to do bands again. Do you know what? I'll get out the old chest expander and give it a bit of boing, okay? Just to change it up a little bit. Stop the boredom, stop the rot getting in. So yeah, like I said, bands are slightly better, but the chest expander, still a good bit of kit in my opinion. And there we are. Well, you let me know what you think in the comment section. Come on, I'd like to hear your opinion. I like a good heated discussion. Whoa, why are you order? Anyway, that's come to the end of the video. If you got this far, well, you may as well give it a like now. Come on. And if you're watching this and haven't subscribed, are you mental? What? Get and hit that subscribe button. Come on. Okay, I'll catch you in the next video. Whee!